Imagine being handed this legally binding document where, breaking the terms doesn't just cost you a fine, but it literally costs you your life.
Right. The stakes are absolute.
Yeah, absolute stakes. And today we are opening up what is basically the ultimate ancient terms of service agreement. But before we dive into this intense, really world-shaping text, I just want to take a quick moment to offer a sincere divine blessing for your day and for your entire week ahead. May it be filled with peace and purpose and clarity.
Because clarity is exactly what we need for this.
Exactly. We are hunting for clarity today on this deep dive.
And we're dissecting what is definitely the most famous set of rules in human history, right? The Ten Commandments. But we aren't just doing a surface-level skim here.
No, definitely not. We are pulling insights from two really comprehensive sources for this, the Holman Study Bible and the NAA, so the Nova Almeida Actualizada Study Bible. But here's the twist. We're not actually looking at the original debut of these rules.
Right, the Exodus version.
Yeah, not the Exodus, but we're specifically focusing on Deuteronomy chapter 5.
Which is such a profound distinction to make. I mean, Exodus is the historical original, sure, but Deuteronomy 5 is essentially the reboot. It's Moses delivering these exact same commandments, but 40 years later.
40 years. And our mission for you today is to figure out the why.
Yeah.
Like, why did Moses have to repeat this entire constitutional framework to a brand new generation?
Well, and more importantly, looking at the really subtle, almost surgical changes in the text between that first version and the second one.
Yes, because those tiny grammatical shifts, they actually reveal monumental evolutions in human rights and divine intent and just what these ancient rules actually mean for you today.
Because if you just approach this text as a static list of ancient thou shalt nots, you are completely missing the dynamic, almost electric reality of what was happening on the ground in that moment.
Right, so let's establish that reality. Before we even look at the rules themselves, we have to look at the psychology of the people who are actually receiving them.
Which is crucial.
So Moses is standing at Mount Horeb, which is Sinai. And it's been 4 decades since the original escape from Egypt. The entire previous generation has died out in the wilderness.
Yeah, 40 years of wandering leaves a profound cultural scar on a population. I mean, the people standing before Moses right now, they are literally the children of trauma.
Wow.
They didn't see the Red Sea part. They only heard the stories from their parents.
And the setting where Moses is delivering this speech is just absolutely wild. Like, the textual notes highlight that God is speaking from the midst of fire and cloud and deep darkness.
Total sensory overload.
Exactly. It's this environment of total sensory overload.
Yeah.
And the Holman notes explain that this signifies God's transcendent glory, an intensity that is so overwhelming that no human could actually look at it and survive.
Which is fascinating because those environmental phenomena, the thick darkness and the cloud, they're actually functioning as an act of profound mercy.
Wait, really? Mercy?
Yes, they act as a necessary barrier. Because if that divine glory were fully unshielded, the human nervous system just couldn't handle it. It would be entirely fatal to the observer.
Oh, wow.
So you have this incredible tension for the Israelites. There's this intense proximity to the divine, but it's coupled with the terrifying necessity of protective barrier.
Right, so standing in the shadow of that terrifying burning mountain, Moses tells this new generation something really striking. He explicitly states that this covenant was not made with their ancestors. He says it was made with us who are alive today.
Which completely shifts the paradigm.
It really does. It makes me think of like a modern citizenship oath. You can't just casually rely on the fact that your parents were citizens of a country. If you want to hold office or fully participate, you have to step up and take that oath yourself.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it, actually. The theological and the political weight here is just massive. This is an active, present tense treaty.
Right.
The previous generation, the ones who actually walked out of Egypt, they broke the contract almost immediately. So this new generation, they can't simply inherit their parents' relationship with the divine through genetics.
They have to consciously sign the document.
Precisely.
Yeah.
A covenant in the ancient Near East isn't just a passive inheritance. It's a living, breathing partnership. Moses is essentially saying to them, your parents' faith cannot sustain you. Your parents' contract does not legally cover you.
Wow.
You are the one standing here right now, and you have to choose your allegiance.
So they are stepping into this totally exclusive binding treaty. And logically, I mean, if you're signing a new exclusive contract, the very first terms have to establish exactly who holds the power, right?
Yes. You must define the nature of the parties involved.
Right. And what makes this sovereign ruler different from any other ruler around them. So the text opens with the absolute command against having other gods and making carved images.
The Hebrew term there is pezel.
Puzzle, right? And the NABA provides this fascinating historical contrast here that honestly just blew my mind. They bring up the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten.
It's a really vital piece of historical context. It grounds the whole text. Akhenaten is famous for being this rare ancient monotheist. Around the 14th century BC, he instituted the worship of a single sun god, Adyton.
And on the surface, if you're just skimming history, you might think, well, the Israelites and the Egyptians both had monotheism, so it's essentially the exact same concept.
But it is radically different.
Radically. Adyton, the sun god, was an impersonal force.
Yeah.
He was literally a physical part of the created world, like he was the sun itself.
Whereas the God of Israel is presented as entirely distinct from the material universe. He is personal, he's highly ethical, and he's completely separate from creation.
Right.
He isn't a force of nature that you can harness, He is the author of nature.
Which perfectly explains that absolute ban on carved images, the pestle. It's not just some arbitrary rule against making art.
No, not at all.
If God is outside of creation, you can't just carve a piece of wood and say, oh, this is him, because doing that reduces an infinite reality into this, manageable domestic object.
It is fundamentally an attempt to control the divine. In ancient polytheism, the whole mechanism of worship was manipulative.
What do you mean by manipulative?
Well, if you possessed the physical idol of a god, you held leverage over that god. You washed it, you fed it, you housed it in a nice temple, and in return, that god was legally bound to owe you favors.
It's like rain for crops or something.
Exactly, rain or victory in battle. But the God of Israel is dismantling that entire transactional system. He absolutely refuses to be manipulated.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more because there's another fascinating nuance here regarding the concept of hating God.
Oh, yes.
The text says God visits the iniquity of those who hate him. And in our modern vocabulary, hate is just, a hot, burning emotion.
Yeah.
But the notes imply it means actively rejecting him as a covenant partner.
Right, because in ancient treaty language, love and hate are strictly legal terms. They aren't emotional states.
Wait, really? Legal terms?
Yes. To love the sovereign king meant to be fiercely loyal to the stipulations of the treaty. And to hate the king meant to commit treason, to rebel, to align yourself with a foreign power.
Wow. That entirely rewires how we should read the third commandment about not taking the Lord's name in vain.
It changes everything.
Because culturally, we've reduced this to, stubbing your toe and swearing. But looking at the mechanics of the language, it's way more serious than just having a bad vocabulary.
Vastly more dangerous. The Hebrew phrasing communicates this physical idea of taking up or lifting up the name for an empty, fraudulent, or useless purpose.
Which means doing what exactly in an ancient context?
Well, the sources point to two primary violations here. First is perjury. That involves swearing to a deliberate lie in a legal setting and attaching God's name to your oath to make your deception look legitimate.
Right.
And second, it includes attempting to use God's name in magical incantations.
So treating the divine name like a magic spell.
Exactly. Ancient magic was all about coercion, using the secret names of deities to force them to execute your will.
Unbelievable.
Ultimately, this commandment is about not dragging the sovereign's reputation into your own corruption. If you claim to represent this God, but you operate your life with manipulation or deceit, you are carrying his name in vain.
You're essentially committing identity theft of the divine.
Identity theft of the divine. That's a great way to put it.
That is incredibly heavy. And that concept of who God is, a liberator who refuses to be manipulated, it sets up the most mind-blowing paradigm shift in this entire document, the fourth commandment, the Sabbath.
This is where we see the most significant, undeniable textual change between the original Exodus version and this Deuteronomy reboot.
Because in Exodus 20, the justification for the Sabbath is rooted strictly in creation. God made the world in 6 days, rested on the seventh, therefore you must imitate him and rest.
Right.
But here in Deuteronomy 5, Moses completely swaps out the reasoning for this new generation. He tells them, you rest because you were slaves in Egypt and God liberated you.
The rationale fundamentally shifts from imitating the Creator to remembering the Redeemer.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The scope of this rest is staggering. The text mandates that your male and female servants must rest. Your animals, like your ox and donkey, must rest. Even the foreigners living in your towns are required to rest.
Yes, everyone.
And the Holman note points out that the Hebrew root word for Sabbath, shaveth, literally translates to cease, just full stop.
It is a total systemic cessation of all economic activity.
This reads less like a religious ritual and more like an ancient labor rights law. You literally aren't allowed to overwork your employees or even your donkey.
It's true.
I mean, think about that for yourself today. If you're listening to this right now, think about your own calendar. Are you granting yourself or the people who work for you that kind of radical rest? Try telling a modern corporation they have to intentionally shut down 14% of their productivity.
It's unthinkable now, let alone thousands of years ago. By ancient standards, it was practically economic suicide. No other society in the ancient Near East was intentionally hemorrhaging 1/7 of its economic output just so the absolute lowest members of the hierarchy could take a breath.
That is wild.
But we have to look at the psychological mechanism behind this for these specific people. For 400 years, the Israelites' ancestors were defined entirely by their brick-making capacity. They were human machinery. And a slave never, ever gets a day off.
Right, because if a slave stops working, they're punished or they starve. Their survival depends entirely on their anxiety and their labor.
Exactly. So the Sabbath isn't merely about taking a nap. It is an intentional, mandated, weekly interruption of survival anxiety.
Wow.
It's a forced reminder you are no longer slaves. You do not belong to an empire that demands endless production to justify your right to exist. To stop working for a day is the ultimate test of trust in this new treaty.
So it's essentially saying stop acting like slaves.
And stop treating others like slaves, yes. It prevents them from recreating Egypt in the Promised Land.
That completely flips the idea of a rule upside down. It's not a restriction on your freedom. It's a weekly practice of your freedom.
It is the institutionalization of human dignity.
It's fascinating that once the text secures this radical baseline of dignity and rest, it moves inward. It evolves from how God treats humanity to how humans are legally bound to treat each other.
The horizontal commandments.
Yes, the horizontal ones. And the original language here carries such intense weight. Yeah, actually, speaking of weight, let's look at the command to honor your father and mother.
The Hebrew word translated as honor is incredibly revealing here.
Yeah, the linguistic breakdown shows it translates literally to consider heavy or weighty. And we usually just reduce this to, telling kids to do their chores. But it's so much deeper.
Much deeper.
It's about attributing high consideration to your parents because they represent the generational chain of this covenant. You don't treat them lightly.
Right. And the mechanism of the language proves your point perfectly. The Hebrew word for curse literally means to treat someone as light or to dismiss them as insignificant.
Oh, that's a perfect contrast.
So to honor your parents is to recognize the profound gravity of their role. They are the physical link that passes this entire survival treaty down to you.
From the family structure, the treaty then moves to protecting physical life. Do not murder. Now, our sources are very careful to distinguish the specific Hebrew term used here, which is ratzak.
This is a crucial legal distinction that frequently gets flattened in English translations.
Right. The notes clarify that ratzak means illegal, immoral, or premeditated killing. It's a very specific category.
Yes, it is intentionally differentiating malicious murder from capital punishment, which their legal system did practice, or from casualties in times of war.
It's about the malicious taking of an innocent human life. But why make that specific distinction right here?
Because the entire theological framework rests on the idea that humans are created in the image of God. We established earlier that carving an idol out of wood is an insult to God.
Right, the pestle.
Exactly. By that same logic, since a human being is the only true image of God on earth, an illegal, malicious strike against a human is viewed as a direct, violent assault on the image of the divine.
That makes perfect sense. And right next to protecting physical life is the protection of the societal foundation, which is adultery.
Yes.
The historical context notes mention that in the ancient Near East, this wasn't just some private moral failing behind closed doors. It was considered the great sin, this massive breach that endangered the entire community.
Well, in a tribal nomadic society, the family unit is your only social safety net.
Because there's no government welfare.
Right. No state-run programs.
Yeah.
So to shatter the family through infidelity is to destabilize the fundamental building block of the society's survival.
Wow.
Moreover, it serves a profound metaphorical purpose in the text. Marriage is consistently used as the primary metaphor for God's covenant relationship with Israel.
Which means infidelity to a spouse is the physical, earthly reflection of idolatry infidelity to God. Both involve violently breaking an exclusive vow.
Precisely. The text treats both as existential threats to the treaty.
So the document protects life. It protects the family unit,
Right.
and then moves entirely internal. It regulates desires through the final commandment, coveting. And this is where I had a massive aha moment reading through these notes.
The textual shift here is one of the most brilliant moments in the entire document.
Wait, okay, let me set this up. In the Exodus version, when it lists the things you are forbidden to covet, the neighbor's house, meaning their general estate or property, is listed first.
Right.
The neighbor's wife is just lumped in with the property list right alongside the servants and the donkeys.
Uh-huh.
But here in the Deuteronomy version, Moses fundamentally rewrites the syntax.
He rearranges the entire order.
He moves the neighbor's wife to the very front of the list, completely separating her from the property. And he even uses an entirely different Hebrew verb for desiring the wife versus desiring the material goods.
Yes.
By doing this, Moses isn't just tweaking grammar, he is entirely removing women from the category of property.
He is effectively rewriting ancient human rights. In the surrounding ancient world, women were frequently legally classified as chattel.
Just mere property owned by the patriarch.
Exactly. This seemingly subtle shift in Deuteronomy elevates the inherent dignity of the individual.
It acknowledges that a human being is fundamentally different from a field or an ox.
It recognizes that coveting a human partner is a different, vastly more grievous offense than wanting someone's real estate. It's a profound evolution toward protecting the sanctity of personhood over possessions.
That is just incredible.
Furthermore, by legislating coveting, the treaty is addressing the psychological root. Murder, adultery, and theft, they don't happen in a vacuum. They are born from unchecked internal desire.
So we have this living, evolving document. It establishes a sovereign who can't be manipulated. It mandates radical labor rights, protects the family, and elevates the dignity of women.
It's sweeping.
But how does a society effectively encode these massive ideas? That brings us to the famous stone tablets themselves.
Because the physical manifestation of the treaty is just as important as the words.
The sources explain that this entire structure perfectly mirrors the legal pattern of ancient Near Eastern treaties, specifically a dynamic between a massive dominant empire and a smaller subordinate nation they've allied with.
Yes, the academic term for this is a suzerain vassal treaty.
Suzerain vassal.
Right. The sovereign king is the suzerain, and the subordinate nation is the vassal.
But the visual imagery we all have for how this contract was recorded is entirely wrong.
Completely wrong.
Like if you picture classic paintings or statues, or that iconic movie with Charlton Heston, Moses always comes down the mountain carrying two tablets, and it's always split right down the middle. Commandments 1 through 5 are on the left tablet, and 6 through 10 are on the right.
Right, the classic image.
But based on the historical evidence of these treaties, the sources are telling us that iconic image is a total myth.
It is historically inaccurate, yes. Standard legal practice for a suzerain vassal treaty required 2 identical duplicate copies of the entire contract to be produced.
Oh, so it's essentially an ancient real estate closing.
Basically, yes.
When you sign a mortgage, you don't get half the contract while the bank gets the other half. You get a full copy, and the bank gets a full copy.
That is the exact mechanism at play. Both tablets almost certainly contained all 10 commandments. One full copy belonged to the sovereign king God, and the other identical copy belonged to the vassal, the people of Israel.
And what did they do with these duplicate copies in the ancient world?
Well, these legal treaties were always deposited in the most secure, sacred place of the vassal nation, usually at the feet of their gods in a sanctuary.
Ah, I see.
This is why the biblical text dictates that both of these stone tablets were placed inside the Ark of the Covenant. They were the legally binding duplicate copies of the agreement, stored in the national vault, serving as a permanent physical witness.
I love how that grounds the theology in gritty reality. These weren't abstract philosophical ideas just floating in the clouds. This was a hard legal survival framework for a nation emerging from centuries of trauma.
It was their constitution, their Bill of Rights, and their theological anchor, all carved into one document.
Wow. Let's recap the journey we've taken today. We started by looking at a terrified new generation standing in the ashes of the old. We've seen how these commandments evolve from a static list into a living treaty.
A conscious commitment.
From a sovereign who refuses to be manipulated by magic to the revolutionary mechanism of the Sabbath that dismantled the psychology of slavery.
And stopping the endless production cycle.
Right. And we saw how the original Hebrews separated a spouse from mere property, legally elevating the dignity of the individual.
It is a masterclass in the evolution of human dignity and societal structure.
It truly is. But as we wrap up, the text leaves us with one final, deeply provocative detail from the very end of the chapter. And it forces us to kind of look in the mirror.
It does. It happens immediately after these rules are delivered. The text notes that when the ancient Israelites heard the voice and experienced the fire, they were completely overwhelmed. They had experienced the unfiltered reality of the divine, and their immediate visceral reaction was to beg Moses to step in. They literally said, if we hear the voice of the Lord our God anymore, we will die.
They realized they couldn't handle the raw exposure. They demanded a buffer.
They absolutely demanded a mediator. And this raises a profound psychological question for us today.
What's that?
Well, in our modern pursuit of spirituality or truth, we often claim that we want to hear directly from God. We want the burning bush, we want the undeniable sign, we want absolute clarity without any middlemen or religious institutions in the way.
Yeah, you hear that all the time.
But based on the historical reality of Sinai, we have to ask ourselves, are we truly prepared for the raw, terrifying, overwhelming reality of the divine?
That is the question.
Or do we, just like those ancient Israelites trembling at the foot of Mount Horeb, secretly prefer a mediator? Do we actually prefer a book, a podcast, a speaker, or a symbol to filter the terrifying weight of that glory for us, simply because we don't want to face the unshielded truth directly?
Wow. That is a staggering thought to end on. Do we really want what we say we want when it comes to the divine? We will leave you to mull that over on your own as you go about your week. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. God blesses all the listeners. Take care, everyone.